Hi everyone, my name is Kopi. I was born and grew up in Carmel by the Sea, a small coastal town in California. My family didn't have much, and we struggled to make ends meet. Because of this, I didn't get the opportunity to attend college like many of my friends. After finishing high school, I began working as a sales clerk in a supermarket to help support my family. Life was challenging, but I knew I had to contribute. In early 2020, when I was 25, I met and married my husband. He is 3 years older than me and worked as a mechanic at a small auto repair shop in town. He is a calm and reserved man, and his reliable nature made me believe we could build a stable life together. My husband is Chinese-American, with a mother who is American and a father who is Chinese. Their family blends two cultures in a unique way. My mother-in-law is a typical American woman, friendly, outgoing, and always trying to maintain traditional American family values. She has a modern lifestyle and often participates in community activities like yoga sessions and social gatherings. She is kind, polite, and always seems to care for me, at least outwardly. On the other hand, my father-in-law clings to the traditions and conservative outlook of an older generation Chinese man. He is about 52 years old, composed on the surface but unpredictable inside. When he first came to the United States, he worked in construction and later became a small manager at a machine shop. Although he is retired, he continues to act as the spiritual guide for the family. After our marriage, even though our life wasn't wealthy or luxurious, I felt content. We led a simple life, working together and appreciating the small joys each day brought. I believed that as long as we stayed united, everything would be fine, but I didn't foresee how mental and physical struggles would slowly erode our happiness. To be honest, my husband, though he appears strong, has difficulties in our intimate life. This has become a major issue for us, and I'm unsure how to handle it. He often experiences premature ejaculation, and whenever it happens, I can't help but feel the disappointment welling up inside me. I tried not to let our situation impact our relationship, but the ongoing problems made our life feel dull and empty. After living together for over a year, we still didn't have children, and that only added to the pressure I felt. My husband is the eldest and only son in his family. He has a younger sister, but she is still in college, so the responsibility of continuing the family line fell on us. This expectation became a burden I couldn't escape. I felt immense pressure, not only from my husband's family but also from within myself. I knew my husband felt it too, but he never spoke about it. Instead, he tried to avoid the subject by staying silent and throwing himself into his work. I faced my mother-in-law's unspoken questions and my father-in-law's observant gaze, fully aware of their higher expectations of me. Yet, I felt lost, not knowing how to solve the issue when my husband refused to confront it. Gradually, the distance between us grew, and our marriage began to crack under the weight of these unaddressed issues. One evening, my husband's parents called us for a talk. They sat down with a serious demeanor, as if preparing for an important conversation. The tension in the air was palpable even before they spoke. My mother-in-law gently suggested that we see a doctor to find out if anything was wrong. I wasn't shocked, in fact. I had anticipated this conversation for a while. I understood that our struggle to have children had become a major concern for them. No matter how delicately she put it, I still felt the pressure weighing heavily on me. I sat there quietly, staring at my hands, while my mother-in-law explained that she just wanted to ensure everything was fine and that neither of us had any serious issues. I understood what my mother-in-law was implying, even though she didn't say it outright. She was questioning my ability to conceive. In that moment, I felt a deep sense of shame, as if it was all my fault. My husband reacted differently. He straightened up, his expression tense, and flatly refused, saying that we didn't need any tests. His tone was sharp, and I knew he was trying to protect his pride, unwilling to admit that he might have a problem. Whenever I tried to bring up the issue, he would evade the topic or brush it off as unimportant, but it had become a dark cloud over our lives. My in-laws glanced at him, and the mood in the room turned even more uncomfortable. No one said a word, but the silence was thick with unspoken disappointment. I felt caught between two worlds. On one side, the duty as a wife to have a child and continue the family line, and on the other, my husband unwilling to face reality. This left me feeling uncertain about what to do. As time went on, the atmosphere in our home became heavier. Every meal was filled with tension, and whenever I saw my in-laws, I felt an unspoken pressure pressing down on me. Their inquiries about my health and encouraging words felt less like genuine concern and more like sharp reminders of my fear. Not being able to have children had turned into a hidden wound, worsening with each passing day. One evening in September 2021 stands out vividly in my memory as it marked a turning point in my life. My husband had a work party that night and came home late. My mother-in-law was at her yoga class with her friends, so it was just me and my father-in-law at home. I never considered him a threat. I saw him as part of the family, even though we were never very close. After a long day, I took a shower and changed into a comfortable short dress to relax at home. I went into the kitchen to prepare dinner for the two of us, thinking it was just a routine meal between family members. I clearly remember walking into the living room and noticing my father-in-law sitting in the chair, watching me with a slightly unusual expression. But I didn't think much of it at the time. When I called him in for dinner as usual, he got up slowly and walked into the kitchen. Everything seemed normal at first, but I had an unshakable feeling of unease that I couldn't quite understand. After the meal, I was washing the dishes, the sound of running water the only noise in the quiet kitchen. Focused on the task, I had no idea that my life was about to change. Suddenly I felt a pair of arms wrapped tightly around my waist, hugging me from behind. Startled, I turned around in a panic, and standing there was my father-in-law. In that moment, I was paralyzed with confusion. My mind was in turmoil, unable to comprehend what was happening. I wanted to scream and push him away, but he covered my mouth. I couldn't escape, and my cries for help were stifled. He held me tightly, and as I struggled to process the situation, he whispered in my ear that he would help me conceive. A chill ran through me at his words, filling me with disgust, but I felt powerless, unable to resist. He moved quickly and with aggression, giving me no time to fight back. The fear that gripped me was overwhelming, leaving me numb. My whole body went cold, and I could do nothing but stand there as everything unfolded. When it was over, I collapsed, clutching my head and sobbing uncontrollably. Shame, revulsion, and terror suffocated me, but my father-in-law, with a cold and indifferent expression, simply remarked that he did it for the family's happiness before walking away as though nothing had occurred. That night, I didn't dare tell my husband. I had no idea how to confront this, fearing that speaking up would push things too far and our marriage would be beyond repair. I chose to remain silent, burying the pain and fear deep within. I pretended as if nothing had happened. After that first time, everything changed. I attempted to go on with life as usual, acting like nothing was different, but every time I saw my father-in-law, I couldn't suppress the shiver of fear that ran through me. His gaze towards me had changed. Gone was the indifferent calm, replaced by something new, a possessiveness and desire I had never seen before. That look left me bewildered and terrified, dragging me into a whirlpool of guilt and torment from which I couldn't escape. One evening, not long after that first incident, my husband had to work late, and my mother-in-law went to her yoga class as usual. I stayed home, feeling restless, haunted by the dread of being alone with my father-in-law. That evening, when he came through the door, I sensed that the worst was about to happen again. There was no longer any avoiding his eyes or controlling my fear. This time, he walked straight up to me, and before I could react, he dragged me into a room. Everything happened so quickly that I had no chance to resist. The door shut behind us, trapping me in a small space where I could hear his heavy breathing close to my ear. This time he was far more forceful, and my weak attempts to resist only seemed to encourage him. The more I tried to push him away, the closer he got. I had to face the reality that I couldn't escape this situation. Even amidst the terror, what shocked me was his control. My father-in-law, even at 52, possessed a strength and confidence in bed that I had never seen in my husband. Despite his tall build, my husband had always been weak and hurried in intimate moments, which left me feeling disappointed and distant. But my father-in-law, on the other hand, knew precisely what he was doing. Each movement and touch was deliberate and commanding. As much as I hated to admit it, deep inside, I felt something I had never felt with my husband: pleasure intertwined with guilt, fear mixed with shame. I was completely lost in that moment, realizing that I had become entangled in something from which I couldn't free myself. When it finally ended, I sat down, my heart heavy, while he behaved as if nothing unusual had occurred, as if this was a reality I had to accept. From then on, my father-in-law and I became even more secretive. Whenever my husband was away, or my mother-in-law was occupied, it turned into another chance for him to come closer. Every time I saw him, I sensed a tension in the air, but there was also something that inexplicably drew me toward him, despite my best efforts to resist. It was a tangled mix of emotions: resentment, suppressed desire that I couldn't break free from. We both understood that our actions were wrong, yet neither of us seemed able to stop. I found myself sinking deeper into this relationship, trapped between the weight of guilt and feelings I couldn't control. About a year later, I gave birth to a baby boy. The child my husband's family had longed for brought a sense of relief from the pressure that had built up over all this time. For everyone else, the birth of my son was a joyful event, a symbol that our family was now whole. But for me, it became an obsession, the outcome of a dark secret that I had to carry on my own. I gazed at my child with a mix of love and sorrow, wondering if he could sense the truth of how he came into this world. Holding him in my arms weighed heavily on my heart. After his birth, my husband and I relocated to a new home. Having a baby brought some joy back to my husband, but I felt an invisible barrier growing between us. The closeness we once enjoyed had vanished. Every time I looked into his eyes, I felt as though I was hiding a terrible truth. My conscience plagued me daily, and the guilt never left my mind. I couldn't bring myself to reveal the truth to him, fearing it would destroy everything: our life, our family, and our children. I lacked the courage to face those consequences, so I chose to keep everything buried inside, living in a stifling silence. Each day, I acted as if everything was normal, even though I was carrying such a heavy burden. Deep down, I sensed the growing distance between us. I felt I had wronged my husband, as though I had betrayed him both physically and emotionally. Yet I didn't know how to break free from this cycle of suffering. The reality felt too painful to expose, and the silence slowly consumed me. Now I find myself standing here, weighed down by this burden, uncertain of what my next step should be. My son, my husband, my family, they all seem so fragile, as if one honest confession could shatter everything. But I also realize I cannot live with this guilt forever. I often wonder if I should tell my husband the truth. Should I reveal my secret relationship with my father-in-law? Should I explain the real source of the guilt that I carry each day? But what if he can't forgive me? Our lives would be forever altered, and I might lose everything I hold dear. On the other hand, should I continue to keep this secret buried? Perhaps I could endure the pain if it meant protecting my family, especially my son. Yet this silence is eating away at me, making it difficult to escape the shame and hurt that live inside me. I am truly at a loss for what to do. What would you do if you were in my position? Should I speak out to find relief, or should I remain silent to keep my family intact? I am seeking guidance and advice from those who might understand these feelings.